You know that person who seems completely fine spending the weekend alone. No panic, no dramatic loneliness, no desperate need to fill every hour with plans. They make coffee clean a little, read something, watch one familiar show, ignore the group chat for a while, and somehow look more alive on Monday than they did at Friday happy hour. From the outside, people often misunderstand this. They call it antisocial, cold, hard to read, maybe even a little sad. But for some people, being alone is not a failure to connect. It is the place where their system finally stops performing. And that is the first thing to understand about people who are happier alone than with others. They are not always choosing emptiness. Sometimes they are choosing congruence. They are choosing the rare feeling of not having to translate themselves. With other people, even people they like, there can be a quiet layer of effort. You monitor your face. You time your reactions. You decide how much enthusiasm is expected. You notice when the conversation turns shallow, loud, competitive, or emotionally messy. Nothing terrible has happened. But your inner battery is being charged a fee. Alone, there is no fee. There is no social bill arriving every few minutes. Nobody needs you to be brighter, quicker, funnier, softer, tougher, more available, or less complicated. The room lets you be exactly the size you are. That is why solitude can feel less like absence and more like relief. For some people, the best part of being alone is not silence. It is accuracy. Their inner world finally matches the outer world. If they feel quiet, the room is quiet. If they want depth, they can think deeply. If they want nothing, nobody asks them to turn nothing into a social performance. This is very different from loneliness. Loneliness is the pain of wanting connection and not having it. Chosen solitude is the peace of having access to yourself. Those two can look identical from the sidewalk, but they feel completely different from the inside. A person can sit alone at a kitchen table and feel abandoned. Another person can sit at the same table and feel returned. That difference matters. Research on solitude motivation has pointed toward a similar nuance. Time alone is experienced differently when it is self-directed, personally meaningful and chosen rather than imposed or used only to avoid people. In plain language, solitude feels healthier when it belongs to you. It is not just being alone. It is being alone on purpose. And many people who love solitude are not rejecting humanity. They are rejecting the versions of social life that require too much acting. They may enjoy one honest conversation more than 4 noisy hours of group banter. They may care deeply but not constantly. They may love people in slower formats, one friend at a time, a long message instead of a phone call, a walk instead of a party, a quiet dinner instead of a crowded room. Their social world is not empty. It is edited. That editing can look strange in a culture that treats busyness as proof of value and constant availability as proof of love. If you do not reply quickly, people assume distance. If you leave early, people assume judgment. If you prefer your own company, people assume something must be wrong with the company available to you. But sometimes the truth is simpler and more tender. Some people have spent years being easier for others than they were for themselves. They learned to laugh at the right time. They learned to soften their opinions. They learned to stay in rooms where their body was already asking to leave. So when they finally get home and the door closes, their nervous system does not say, "You are alone." It says, "You are back." That moment can be powerful. Shoes off, phone down, lights low. The small private ritual that tells the body it no longer has to manage anyone's expectations. To someone else, it looks like a quiet night. To them, it is a form of repair. This is why people who are happiest alone often seem calmer in their own space than they do in social settings. They are not always shy. They may be selective about where their full self can appear. Around others, they may feel fragmented, a work self, a family self, a polite self, a funny self, a low-maintenance self. Alone, those selves come home to one table. They do not have to decide which version is safest. They can simply exist. And that is where the deeper psychology comes in. Solitude can give certain people autonomy, regulation, and self-continuity. Autonomy means I can choose my pace. Regulation means my body can come down from stimulation. Self-continuity means I can remember who I am when nobody is pulling on me. That last one is easy to underestimate. Many adults are not tired because they hate people. They are tired because people come with roles. At work, you are useful. With family, you are available. In friendship, you are responsive. Online, you are visible. In public, you are readable. Solitude is the rare place where you do not have to be a function. You can be a person again. This is especially true for people who grew up highly tuned to the emotional weather around them. Maybe they learned early to notice mood shifts. Maybe they became good at staying out of the way. Maybe they were praised for being easy, mature, quiet, helpful, or no trouble. Not everyone who loves solitude has this history. But for some, alone time became the first place where nobody needed anything from them. And when your early life teaches you that other people's needs arrive before yours, solitude can feel almost sacred. It is the only room where your own needs are not rude. That does not mean solitude is automatically healthy. This is where the shadow side matters. Peace and hiding can wear the same sweater. A quiet weekend can restore you, but a quiet year can sometimes shrink you. Solitude becomes a problem when it stops being a choice and starts becoming a wall. When every invitation feels like a threat. When every message feels like a demand. When the idea of being known starts to feel more dangerous than being alone. That is no longer just preference. It may be protection that has lost its flexibility. The question is not, do you like being alone? The better question is, does being alone make your life bigger or smaller? Healthy solitude gives you energy to return to the world in a way that fits you. Avoidant isolation teaches you that returning is impossible. Healthy solitude helps you hear your own thoughts. Avoidant isolation makes every other voice feel like an invasion. Healthy solitude is a home base. Avoidant isolation becomes a locked room. And the goal is not to shame the locked room. Sometimes that room protected you when you needed protection. But eventually a life built only around protection can begin to feel like a life built around fear. People who are happier alone are often told they need to become more social. But that is not always the right advice. The better invitation is to become more honest about what kind of connection actually feels nourishing. Maybe you do not need more people. Maybe you need fewer performances. Maybe you do not need a bigger social calendar. Maybe you need relationships where your nervous system does not have to hold its breath. For some people, happiness alone is not proof that they are broken. It is proof that they have a rich enough inner life to enjoy their own company. It is proof that they can self-regulate without constant stimulation. It is proof that they are not terrified of silence. But the healthiest version of this pattern leaves a door somewhere. Not a wide open door that lets everyone rush in. A real door. One you can close. And one you can open when the right person knocks gently. Because the point is not to choose solitude forever over people. The point is to stop choosing people who make solitude feel like the only safe option. Maybe you are not antisocial. Maybe you are socially precise. Maybe you are not happier alone because others have no value. Maybe you are happier alone because alone you do not have to abandon yourself. And the next chapter is not becoming someone louder, busier, or easier to consume. It is building a life where your solitude restores you and your connections do not erase you. So if this felt familiar, ask yourself gently, is being alone your sanctuary or has it become your hiding place? And what would connection look like if it did not cost you yourself?